When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. I got another great episode for you today. This week, we are bringing on Payshence. She has tons to talk about. I'm not going to get in her way on that, and I'm not going to disclose too much because, I like to be surprised just like you do as the conversation unfolds. I'm going to leave this genuine, so I didn't dig too much. But we've been working on lining up a good scheduled time for us to talk, so she'll be coming on shortly. Real quick, before we get into the show, I wanted to let you know that if you want to get a hold of me, if you want to be on the show, you can reach me at thebumppodcast@gmail.com. You can call me at 304-812-0553. That's the Bump phone. That's sitting right over here. We're waiting for your call. Or you can get at me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, any of those platforms, but the most surefire way to make sure I see it would be on email. Let me see here. That's Payshence messaging me back right now. All right, she'll be on here any second. Real quick, these YouTube episodes, my numbers have been kind of stagnant for months and months. I'd say probably 6 months. I've set just under 1,000. So what we're going to do, and to give more to my patrons, because I feel like I haven't given them enough, what we're going to do is these episodes, there will be short episodes for YouTube. I'll put segments on, but these videos in their entirety are going to be reserved for patrons. I've had a membership through the website. That's been up and down. It hasn't really taken off. There's a whole lot of fees going on with using the website the way I wanted to. Isn't working out. So we're going to move everything, keep it all on Patreon. There's going to be early release content. There's going to be exclusive video content. If you guys want the raw, uncut footage or whatever, or a nice clean episode, but video in full will be on Patreon. That just seems like the most fair way to do it for people who are going that extra step to support the show. To show my appreciation for you, I want to give something back, more than what I'm doing already. I appreciate your patience, being with me while I try to figure this all out. But I think that's going to be the best route for this foreseeable future, is to give Patreon more attention and to keep YouTube at a smaller scale, since it's not wanting to grow like the rest of the show. I almost get embarrassed when I'm like, hey, yeah, I got a podcast. Yeah, it's on YouTube, but it's just a fraction of the subscribers on YouTube as it is compared to the downloads I get off, on just a podcast. So we'll just focus more on on content. Okay, not as much about where all to find it. It'll still be on every podcast platform. That'll still be free. This is just for those that want to support the show. I'm gonna give more. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and bring Patience on, and you all just sit back and relax and enjoy a good episode. Hey there, believers. Let's bring her on right now. Wow, that's fast.
All right. Well, I want to start first by thanking you because you're a part of the reason I decided to start a podcast of my own. And I decided to reach out to you to be the first person I shared the story with because you are just always so welcoming on your podcast. I mean, there's just an energy about you. And you had the Anchor ads out, and so you made it sound really easy, like it was easy to start a podcast. But I remember how you had someone on who I believe was a podcast host themselves, and they were talking about, just the podcast community, how it's like a big family, and how it's not like a competition, and that there's room for anybody to do it, and the more people, the better. And you guys were just kind of talking about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it because I want to. It's going to be fun. And I wanted to do it to get in touch with more like-minded people like yourselves. And so I'm just really excited to be here talking to you because I just love having conversations like these. And it's cool. I look up to you along with many other podcasters. I've been listening to you for like a year. So I'm just really excited to share this with you and get your opinions and your thoughts.
Sweet. Hey, thank you so much. That's a very kind words. I want you to share with everybody the name of your podcast and where they can listen to it at. And I appreciate that. I try to just be myself on here. I hear people talking about their podcast life versus their real life, and I know that sometimes we can't disclose everything, but the longer I do it, the more open I feel like I'm able to be. And it's a little raw sometimes, and sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it just is what it is. So
yeah, you can't dwell on those things, and being yourself is the best you can ever be. So just that's what I do. I'm just an open book,
There you go. Can't go wrong if you tell the truth, right?
Exactly. So sorry, were you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, well, go ahead, let's go ahead and share where they can find you at, and then we'll go over it again at the end too, and that way everybody can hop on there after they listen to us talk.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for the plug. It's called Deep Perception Podcast. So I should be on, well, like I said, I used Anchor, so they throw you everywhere. So I should be on all major platforms. And I just started out, it's not anything too crazy yet, but I would love, any feedback and stuff anyone would have to give me. And yeah, so I appreciate that. But I'm not just here to get attention either. I want to have a message. I have a message for everyone.
Yes. Well, I want to hear it.
All right. Well,
you sent me an awesome email, and yeah, I will share it if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
At least with patrons, or maybe on Instagram. I don't know. Just however it comes out, it comes out. But
yeah, do whatever. I don't care either way. Wanted to give people more of a visual, and my idea with that is because I don't know, maybe to an outsider I could sound a little crazy. So I wanted to formulate enough proof, as what I call proof, can't make all that up, just to get people to realize, that it's something that they should pay attention to themselves, which we'll get into that. So first off, the idea of a synchronicity, have you heard of that idea before personally?
I have heard of synchronicities.
Yeah, I figured so. Well, the definition coined by Carl Jung was the idea of events being related in meaning, not just cause and effect, which is how we typically see things. And everyone can relate to having coincidences. If you've gone your whole life and haven't had a coincidence, that would be really surprising, right?
Right.
Plenty of us say, "Oh, what a coincidence! What are the odds? That was ironic. That's weird." You're thinking of an old friend you haven't talked to for years, and then seconds later they give you a phone call. That's could be viewed as a synchronicity, a coincidence. Also, it can be, I'm actually reading a book called When God Winks by Squire Rushnell, and it talks about how he coined the term God winks, but I like it and I adapted it because it just makes sense. It's coincidences that God is kind of throwing at you, or, the universe, or, whatever you believe. I'm not here to push any religion, but it's God to me. Um, and that we can, when you recognize these in your lives, you can start seeing more and more, and it really connects you spiritually, which is something that most people are very far away from. So I think back in the day, way back in the day, we were a lot more connected to nature and to spirit and to God and the universe, and we were more all one. And unfortunately, we've steered away from that. But this is a good way to kind of see the proof in your own life. I believe that you can see these type of synchronicities no matter what your religion is, no matter what your beliefs. I was an atheist most of my life. Not that I didn't believe in anything. I was majorly just into science and evolution. I had no faith in anything other than what I can see and touch and feel. And these synchronicities are what actually changed all of that. So there are a lot of other people that bring up synchronicities throughout history. I mean, Pythagoras talked about it. In The Alchemist, it's even mentioned by Paulo Cello, sorry. And most of these people even had a lot of these synchronicities in their own lives as well, which brought them to writing the book they wrote that changed the world, and yada yada. Some examples of these synchronicities, like in the book When God Winks, it mentions a woman who was a single mother, and she needed exactly $625 to, pay her electric and her rent so that her lights didn't get shut off and all that. And she was just at her wit's end, didn't know what to do. So she stood on top of the Bible and said, "Dear God, I'm standing on top of your word. Help me. I need help." And the next day, somehow $625 just appeared. She got this random check in the mail, and her bank account actually had more money than it was supposed to. And it was just like, okay, what are the odds? Right. And there's a lot of other examples. I heard another story about someone who in their teen years or in their early 20s wrote on $10 bills the name Esther, which was her name. And she had just gotten out of a bad relationship. And she said, if I'm supposed to have a soulmate, then one of these dollar bills are going to end up in the hands of the man I'm supposed to marry. And then, like 10 years go by or so, and this guy she had been dating found a dollar bill with her name on it, and he thought it was funny and ironic. So he framed it and he gifted it to her the same day he asked to be official. And she just lost her mind. Oh, wow. Because that was her dollar bill she had wrote on. So that right there is just crazy coincidence, right? Yeah, like those odds you can't even calculate.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, whether it happens like that crazy or just, like you're thinking of a song and next thing you know, it plays on the radio, things like that. Even the smallest things, right?
Right.
It says in the Bible, it references in Proverbs 19:21, and I'm not very Bible literate. I mean, I'm trying my best. I know you're better at that. So, but it says that God is in control of even the most random event, right? No matter how random it may seem or how small it may seem. And I was looking in the Bible for, talk about synchronicities or coincidences, and I didn't dig too deep, but there was a mention one time in Luke 10:31 about the word coincidence. And that was the only mention of it. But what was interesting to me and stood out was coincidence, which translated from the Greek word synchron. So it's SYNKYRIAN, synchron. Doesn't that sound a lot like synchronicity?
It does. Yeah.
So I don't know. That was just interesting to me.
That is.
Yeah. So I remember this one time. I don't have this in my chronological order of events, but I was listening to a song on my phone, like on my YouTube music, and I had lost Wi-Fi or my phone died. I can't remember. But anyways, the song got cut off, and I was like, dang it, I was into that, and the radio switched on, and it was the exact same song playing in the exact same spot.
Oh, wow.
Right, which was just weird. And that was so long ago before I was even open to anything, but it was just weird,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that was just a coincidence. But when you have a lot of those in your life, you really start to question it, which is what, yeah. So anyways, it started with me before, like I said, I was more atheistic most of my life. I didn't believe, I didn't have faith in nothing besides the physical. And it wasn't until I started watching Ancient Aliens on History Channel. They, I don't agree with a lot of their theories, obviously.
Right.
But, it was entertaining, and it also got me to question history, because up till that point, I trusted our government. I trusted the history books. I trusted all of that. I never questioned it once until that show kind of got me questioning if maybe we don't have all the answers, right?
Yep.
And then that led me to finding podcasts, actually. So I got on Twitter and started following things around Ancient Aliens, and it led me to like Tony Merkel and Greg Carlwood, Sam Tripoli, all those guys I'm sure you're familiar with. And yeah, so I got deep into the rabbit hole, just questioning everything. And actually, at first, listening to all the experiences on Tony Merkel's podcast, The Confessionals, I was like, man, there's hundreds of people with experiences with these demonic things, or just these weird things, or just these poltergeist activities in their homes, and all of this spirit stuff. And I was like, this is true. Like, not all these people can be lying.
Right.
And so I believed in it. I believed in evil, and I believed in spirits. But then I had this epiphany that, okay, well, if you believe in that, you have to believe in the opposite. You have to believe in God, and you have to believe in angels, and you have to believe in the opposite. So I was like, all right, okay, I believe. So that was kind of how it got into it. And it was funny that about that time, and this is when it all kinds of starts for me. Now, this was back in, I'm trying not to look at my notes too much, but starting around November 2019 was when I was going through all that shift in perspective. And around, I don't know, the end of December or early January, I was in a bad place with my relationship and was just kind of slipping into depression. And, you have this paradigm shift in your perspective of everything. And then things in life aren't going well. And I just, looking back on it now, I think this is when I first surrendered to God, right? And I just said, help me, guide me. I'm finally, I believe in you, and I'm asking you to stick me on the path I'm supposed to be on, because I don't think I am on the right path right now. And then, I'm not even kidding you, just days after, Ryan, which is my fiance, and who I'm with now, who I was with then, and we were not getting along. We did not even agree on a single thing at all. We were barely talking. We were living in separate rooms. That's how bad it was, right? But somehow we both woke up and thought, let's stop trying to get rich and let's get poor, because that is what, I don't know, we just had this like epiphany feeling. It was just,
Right.
I don't know. And we both came to that conclusion separately, and we
Wow.
both brought the idea to each other together. And it's significant because we weren't getting along. So there's no reason we would be on the same frequency with that. It was
Right.
weird. So looking back on it now, we think it was divine intervention, that we were like sent that intuition for a reason. So we decided to get poor, which means we didn't want to work our lives away anymore. We had just become life and health insurance agents, and it was destroying our relationship. It was destroying everything because it was consuming us, and we were barely seeing our kids, and we barely got to do anything fun. It was just wasn't the way it was supposed to be.
Right.
So get poor. And we thought, okay, well, how do we do that? Well, we need to simplify. We ended up deciding to go off grid. So we got a camper, and we ended up moving to where we are now on our own piece of land, and all that. So
Wow.
it was just weird that we both had that feeling at the same time after I prayed for guidance.
Yep.
And I have no doubt now that I'm on the right path. So I know for a fact that prayer was answered through that.
Absolutely was. That's so interesting that you guys would do that, and that you would come to that same conclusion at the same time like that.
Exactly.
Because that's not a common thought. let's pursue being
Yes.
poor. Because I'm like, well, I can show you how to do that. I live that. I grew up that way. You know what I mean? That's a wonderful thing, and I know you're probably going to expand on that. But that when you mentioned Sam Tripoli, and then you talked about how you had this paradigm shift, I'm sure if you still listen to Sam, it's like he says all the time that all conspiracies lead to spirituality.
Yes, I have that in my notes because that is so true. Yes.
Yes, conspirituality they call it.
Yes, I love it.
That is 100% truth. And I've gotten over the last 5 years or so, I've gotten way closer to God, and I can thank podcasts like Sam's show, Blurry Creatures the last couple of years, Tony's show. Yeah, I love the path that you're on because it sounds so familiar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't sound absolutely crazy then.
Oh no, not at all. Unless, well,
Good,
I don't
good.
know. Maybe
Maybe
we're
to some
crazy.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay though.
Yeah.
I just think it's cool, and most people I talk about it, most people thought we were crazy when we're like, yeah. And we contemplated for a long time how we were going to do everything. We kind of just figured it out. But that's the crazy thing. I was so indecisive back then. I was only 20 years old. And I just had a baby like 6 months before this decision. And it was just crazy that we both were like, yeah, let's do it. And we just dove right in. We were always prepared for obstacles, but we didn't really worry about them. We didn't really have the thoughts, well, what if, what if? We just knew it will work out. It will work out. It will work out. And we weren't attributing it to God. And I honestly didn't even really think about that prayer and it being connected until way later. We just kind of dove in. We got busy. We started selling all of our stuff, minimalizing to fit our townhouse, huge house that, we've spent thousands of dollars accumulating crap. And we just got rid of it all. And we got a camper. We made a 5-year plan. We got a camper and we moved. And our 5-year plan is almost finished after only 3 years.
Wow.
So we got a piece of land on land contract. We had no credit. We were still paycheck to paycheck. I mean, we were just normal people. We did not have money. We did not have credit, nothing. But it all worked out. So we got our land. We only had to pay $10,000 for it, which was extremely cheap.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which is not, an extravagant piece of land. It's like a long rectangle, but hey, it's all ours. But yeah, and yeah, I really do thank God for all this because it was divine intervention. And that was one of the first synchronicities that I really experienced. And I didn't notice it at the moment at all. I had no term to describe what had happened. I just knew it in my intuition that this is what was supposed to happen.
Right.
And after we were already living in our camper, at first we had to go to like a campground and live for a couple months until we got our land. And so happened to be an abandoned house here on the land that everyone told us to burn down and destroy. And we actually have completely remodeled it, and it will be done in just a couple months. So
wow,
that's another blessing in all of it.
Yes.
But this is when I started seeing the numbers 33 a lot. And this might sound a little cuckoo, right? And I thought I was kind of cuckoo for a while when I was seeing it. And yes, I know that if you buy a car, you'll start seeing that car and you can do all of this in your head. I'm completely aware of that. And that's what I thought a lot of it was. But there was things that had happened that I cannot just brush off into being, oh, it's just in my mind. So you'll see that. So the 3-3 started showing up. I was just seeing 3-3s everywhere. I was deep into conspiracies. I had listened to a couple podcasts about numerology, and I don't really mess with all that stuff. I just think it's entertaining. And when I started seeing the 3-3s, I was like, let's see what it says on Google. So I would just Google it, and it was saying that something along the lines of, oh, your guardian angels are trying to tell you you're on the right path, yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, all right, God, if this is supposed to be a sign from you, then I will always take it as that. And if I ever see it, or if I ever go a long period without seeing these numbers, that can be your way of telling me to shift paths again. Because I just felt like I had this relationship, that I could speak like this. And yeah, and I just kind of still thought I was just kind of being crazy and it was just in my head. So I would just see it, it would just kind of make me smile. And I didn't really know if I was just doing it myself or it really was some kind of communication. But regardless, it made me feel good and it made me feel happy. So I just rolled with it. And then we get to around July 2020. I remember, right? I was standing at the campground. We were living in the camper now, and I was doing my dishes, and I had a window right in front of the sink. And I was actually listening to a podcast about spirituality and guardian angels and um, all the spiritual stuff. And I look out, and boom, there's an albino squirrel just chilling in my yard.
Nice.
So I was like, I've never seen one of those before. That's so cool. And I just Googled it. What's it mean when you see a squirrel? Because I had just been listening to this podcast that made me think to Google it. And it said something about the coming of change or new spirituality. And I was just like, that's kind of fitting, right? Because of just getting this prayer answered when I asked for guidance. And now I'm living in this camper and having all these realizations and I'm seeing this number everywhere. And it was just weird. But
Sure.
still, I wasn't entirely convinced that I wasn't just crazy. And then this isn't some of these experiences I'm going to go into chronological order aren't necessarily have anything to do with synchronicities or numbers or anything. They're just experiences that I thought were cool to share. So,
Yeah.
and this is one of those. So after I seen the squirrel, I was specifically listening to a podcast with Tony Merkel, or not with Tony Merkel, but his podcast. And they were just talking about demon possession. It was just a normal experience and talking about demonic possession and exorcisms and all that stuff. And I remember my aunt was in the hospital and she had an aneurysm years and years ago. And she kind of just had a psychic break during all of that, which now looking back, I think it was demonic oppression. I think something attached to her.
Oh, yeah.
And, it makes me sad now she's passed away and I wasn't communicating with her because, of her behaviors when it might not have been entirely her fault. But in this experience, she was in the hospital and my other aunt went there to visit her and to comfort her. And she was in a vegetative state. Her kidneys were failing. Things weren't looking good. And she was in a vegetative state for like 3 days. My aunt was doing everything for her. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. She was in the vegetative state. And then my aunt, she woke up and she was still only half out of it, half in it. And my aunt, not the one in the hospital, the other one, was talking to her and asking her how she was feeling. That aunt is also a nurse. She was doing nursey stuff. And she said, I have a lot of people praying for you right now. And my aunt said that she shot straight up out of the bed, just straight up, even after her muscles should have not have allowed her to do this because you know how it is when someone's in a hospital bed and haven't moved in 3 days. They're not going to just sit straight up. But, that happened. I guess she sat straight up and said her boyfriend was Jesus and was going to heal her. And she didn't need prayers. And my aunt said that her eyes turned black, that she saw her eyes just flash black. But then a nurse walked in and everything was kind of back to normal. And my aunt was just left there kind of freaking out.
Yeah.